The Lakers, I just have two names for them. I probably have, so I have Eric Gordon, who would be a huge get for them, just monstrous for them. And then I have Buddy Hield. I think he's played bad enough to where it's like,
Oh, that's a painful inclusion though for Lakers fans.
but if you can now get him using Talon Horton-Tucker and Kendrick Nunn, and then I don't know, is that even enough?
Okay,
Like,
so
does Sacramento?
here's my follow-up question though, is should they? I think they can, but like, does this team have the championship upside to actually give up one of the few young players on the roster for a potential short-term fix?
I don't know. And
I really don't think so. Like LeBron has been phenomenal this season when he's been available, and that availability is becoming more of a question mark. Anthony Davis has been. I'll avoid going on a rant here, but he's been really good despite being disappointing. And then Russell Westbrook, has
getting
been
better.
up and down, but the fit still, even with everyone available, as rarely as that happens, it doesn't seem like this team is going to be able to compete with the front runners in the Western Conference. And I don't know that it makes sense given the overwhelmingly high age status of this roster to give up one of the very few young players. Isaiah Thomas, just signed, and I think he's pushing 40 at this point and brought down the average age.
Oh man, that was the way you phrased that. The higher age status, whatever it was great. I get the skepticism to me. And look, Davis's injury, now he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, and it'll probably be close to 8, knowing Davis. That I'm not even dumping on him. It's going to be 8 weeks. You have to, maybe you're thinking about the mortality of this season, the limitations, but you also can't think like that because you have LeBron James. You made the consolidation trade for Westbrook. And I will also maintain that the lineups with Davis at the 5, with LeBron and Russ, they have killed opponents. They're like plus 15 per 100 possessions or something. So if you have a healthy Davis, a healthy LeBron, I still think you're a threat in the West, and you need to treat yourself as such on the trade market. I think their bigger limitation, rather than their ceiling, which is lower than I think they expected. This is not a surprise. When I was going through their report cards, I was like, people are going to wonder why they didn't get an F or a D. And they've been playing better lately. But I'm like, expectations outside of Los Angeles were pretty tapered after that.
They were not going to compete for home court advantage in the first round of the Western Conference playoffs. Like, that was unrealistic from the start.
I am curious, are they going to look at do they need to look at maybe a small ball? They could use Kendrick Williams now that AD is out, because the solution here is to play Dwight once he's out of health and safety protocols. Fine. You have LeBron at the 5 units, or do you go back to the DeAndre Jordan experiment, which is, no, I would argue. Again, it's tough to spot sellers, and the Lakers are just so limited in what they could give. Maxi Kleber would be great for them. Does Dallas want to deal with someone they'll perceive to be as a direct rival? Who knows? And are you giving up Talon Horton-Tucker for Maxi Kleber? The Lakers and their fans probably are not. But I'm curious to see if they go that. Can they find like a cheap big that helps them? Because Davis looks like he's going to be out for quite some time here. But you could, if you were looking for, Alec Burks would be great for this team. But I don't know, what do the Knicks want for him?
I don't want to give up like THT in this theoretical.
Well, that's
trade.
the problem, is that, so I think that the Lakers are smart to view THT as like sort of their last golden asset. But I also don't think he's been good enough for other teams to view him as such.
It's just not a good situation. We say all this, like the 538 ELO based predictions right now. They have the Lakers going 39-43 with a 37% chance of making the playoffs. This is, I don't know that this is a team that needs to be mortgaging its future even further. Like, at some point, you've made the consolidation trades. You have LeBron. Like, you just have to trust the incumbent talent. And if it figures it out, it figures it out. And if it doesn't, like, let's not dig the hole even deeper.
Would you do? So, and this is, I think there needs to be another body. And there probably needs to be. Look, that's the other problem, is that Nunn and Tucker make like 15.5, or no, they make 14.5 million between them. So, like, you can take back a $19 million player. But let's say, would you do Tucker, Nunn, your first allowable first round pick, which, because New Orleans has the right to defer the one that they're owed in 2025, could be 2027. But let's just say first allowable first round pick. So would you do Nunn, Tucker, first allowable first round pick, and there has to be other salaries involved. Would you give that up for Harrison Barnes if you're this team?
Probably not.
Oh, I will. I 100% would.
I'm going to double down on my not wanting to move off the very few long-term assets that they have right now.
I think that's a tougher sell for the Kings than the Lakers, to be honest with you, just because you can look at it as go ahead and short the Lakers' long-term future when you look at what they've done. But I think we've learned at this point, they got LeBron. They got it. Like, they're always like, players are always going to want to come to them. Maybe if you strip them down enough for their trade assets.
But like you just said, the first available first-round pick might be like 2027.
That's
LeBron isn't going to be a Laker in 2027. Like, at some point, you have to think about that.
I don't think you do if you're the Lakers. I think if you're other teams, the front office, definitely in Sacramento, doesn't have the job stability to think that way. But that is their Godfather offer, though, is the Tucker first allowable first round pick. Who does that get? Are you giving it up for Eric Gordon? You're not doing that either, are you?
Probably not.
And I'm sure I'm trying to think of like realistic players. I get why you would think about Eric Gordon's a little older. I would absolutely do it for Harrison Barnes if that's the framework. There's like no one that even really springs to mind though when you're really getting into it. So they're in a tough spot, but they could use like a cheaper wing to. They need a lot of stuff. Is essentially my point here. They have their biggest issue to me is they just have too many one-way players. When you start to look at their supporting cast, is you can't play someone without sacrificing floor balance on offense or torpedoing your defense. Maybe Trevor Ariza winds up helping them there, but he's 80 years old. So
youthful by the Lakers standards. What's the best case scenario for the Lakers this year? Realistically,
they can win a championship.
You think they can win a championship with this roster?
I don't think they're one of the 5 most serious contenders, but I don't think if you tell me that Davis, Russ, and LeBron are healthy.
But even with a healthy Davis, we're seeing more and more that the shooting that carried them in part to that championship was a fluke. It was an anomaly. We have seen nothing before or after to make it seem like that was in any way sustainable and not a hot streak.
They've played a lot better on defense. And so I have a point here. If you can ugly it up, I don't know that shooting is as important. We saw the Bucks follow that model. They were not shooting well throughout the playoffs last year. I wouldn't pick them in a series against any of the. I'm not picking them against the Suns, the Warriors, the Bucks, the Nets. Probably not picking them against the Jazz. But like, they have LeBron, and LeBron has still been really good when healthy. And again, the numbers when Davis is at center with Russ and LeBron, they've been brutalizing opponents. If you get into the postseason intact and avoid the play-in, let's say if they're in the play-in, they're done. They're not making it out of the West with the way that bracket would set up. No, I'm not saying you have to pick them against any of the teams that are in front of them, but it would not floor me if this roster won a championship. I wouldn't predict it.
I think it would because there's just still so much weight on LeBron's shoulders. You know that I already started to have some of the concerns about him showing some of the signs of the elevated age last postseason. And I think that he's only played 18 games as we're recording this. And I think that's part of why he has looked so good when he's played. And I don't know that I want to count on LeBron, as good as he is and as dumb as it is to bet against him, elevating his game to the point it would need to be for them to be championship contenders for not just 1, but 2 and 3 and 4 playoff series.
What other teams are you putting in front of them aside from the 5? Like, are you saying Memphis is more likely to win a title this year than the Lakers?
No. I think that the Lakers do have the upside there, but like the Mavericks, maybe. Like I would count on Luka doing more carrying.
You're going to count on a team coached by Jason Kidd over one that has LeBron and Anthony Davis. That's interesting.
It's close. They're in the same ballpark, but I think like for me, the teams that you mentioned are the ones where it's just like, I don't see how they can break past that category. It's not a matter of having so many teams in front of them. It's more just how far ahead of them those teams are.
I think your skepticism is fair because I don't think they've earned the benefit of the doubt, but I think their ceiling is still championship. It's not.
I don't.
It's not eminently reachable, but I think it's, this isn't, I think you look at the Cavs this year without making a huge move, their ceiling is not title contender. Same for Memphis. The Lakers are clearly, they've not been better. I want to make that clear. Both those teams have been better. they still have the championship ceiling to me, however far away it seems.
I'm still looking at that 538 page, and they do have chances of winning the finals. They're giving the Lakers a 0.3% chance, which puts them just behind the Raptors at 0.4, the Pacers at 0.5, the Bulls at 0.6, the Mavericks at 0.6, the Cavs at 0.8, the Grizzlies at 1. I think some of those numbers are ridiculous, but they're all so small that the differences are so marginal nonetheless. I don't see them rising to the level of the teams that have a 5+% chance.
You put me in a position where I need to defend the Lakers, and I don't like it. They've been bad, but I think it's to say that a team with LeBron and Anthony Davis don't have a 5% chance of winning the title in this year of all years.
And that is probably the most salient argument this year of all years, because yeah, there's a scenario in which they get lucky and have no one in COVID protocols and everyone is healthy.
Right. That is true. But I guess if you want to say they have less than a 5% chance of winning the title, you need to allocate 96% to one of those other 5 teams, because I just don't know. Maybe Miami, you could talk yourself into having better chances. The list is starting to peter out for me.
What about the Nuggets?
The Clippers, because Kawhi might come back. So there are scenarios, but if you're going to put the Nuggets or the Clippers into say that they have a championship ceiling, you need to absolutely say that the Lakers have a championship ceiling. You're staring deadpan. We need to move on.
Yeah.
We've reached the impasse.